Now, could you speak to a moment, both of you, in terms of the objection that's sometimes raised against teaching teens NFP? Because a lot of people say, look, if you teach these girls when they can't have a baby during the month, then they're just going to harness that information and become sexually active at a different time of the month. And I think a lot of people don't understand, like, there's a difference between sex ed and education in human sexuality, that you're not just teaching them a technique, you're teaching them a worldview, an ideology of the beauty of the human body and how it fits in the context of human sexuality. Could you maybe speak and debunk that myth that if you teach a teenage girl NFP, they're just going to abuse that information?
Well, we're not advocating for teaching them NFP.
Right.
NFP is charting plus, responsible parenthood, which is when you're discerning, how you're going to use your fertility as a couple to grow your family and when and how. And that's not what we're advocating for teaching teen girls. We're actually advocating for giving them a health tool, which is learning how to discern the fertility biomarkers that their body gives them throughout their monthly cycle, to be able to track that in a meaningful way so that they can see their patterns. They can understand, wow, I know pretty well that I'm going to be having my period during, such and such time. And here's how I can prepare myself for that. I know I might be feeling a little down at that time. I know that I'm, have a test on that day that I'm, probably going to start my period. Here's how I can prepare myself a little bit better for that. We're teaching them how to, integrate this really important part of their health into their overall life. We're not teaching them, the rules of like your typical NFP method. My husband and I teach CCL. We're not giving them the rules of, okay, this many days around ovulation, you have to stay abstinent or else you're going to get pregnant. We don't get into that with teens. There's no need for it. We just need to give them the tool, which is really, their birthright, to understand their biology. At the end of the day, it's just helping them understand their bodies. And Teen Star, which Gerard mentioned before, has actually studied the exact question you asked us to debunk, which is, does it raise rates of promiscuity? And actually, no. Rates of promiscuity go down in interventions. So Teen Star, a big part of their program is a school-based intervention. They'll go into schools. They have a boys program and a girls program. And based on surveys that they've conducted after their intervention, rates of promiscuity have gone down, not only amongst girls, but amongst boys, because boys are taught to respect girls and their own fertility as well. And also rates of like reclaiming their virginity, returning to chastity, go up, because it's really an empowering message to young people. This is the truth of your body. This is how your biology works. Here's how you work with it, not against it. And here's how you let it not control you as well. So I think I'm really encouraged by the fact that there has been this mindset shift into, wow, it's actually better for teens to know this than not, because for so long there was that fear and that it would raise rates of promiscuity and that sort of thing. And luckily, those fears have been largely unfounded. And in fact, we see the opposite. So
there is an app called Fem Health is the website, that they have a way on the app to set it up so that it's just for charting and not for natural family planning, right? So you have two settings basically, because indeed it's very different. You learn, it's a different education, right? Learning to know your body versus learning to, plan a family based on the cycle and when to have intercourse and so on. So I think it's a huge difference, but it's just like Grace said, very very good, very important for young women to know.
Yeah, now,
and very easy to separate. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving the conversation to the older crowd of married couples, I think a lot of times they're told by their gynecologist, well, hey, no more pregnancies. We can't have another pregnancy, whether there's too much scarring to the uterus from the previous C-section or because of this reason or that reason, pregnancy is not an option. And I know sometimes the gynecologists are a little overly strict in terms of those things to protect their own, liability. But sometimes there is a legitimate, health reason to not conceive again. And so a lot of couples think, okay, we can't use the calendar rhythm method. I mean, that had a failure rate of 30%. So NFP's out the window, kind of conflating those. So the most loving, sacrificial thing I could do as a husband, from a love of my bride, vasectomy. Or we just need to put her on the pill we can't be without a mother. I mean, if we disregard the gynecologist's advice and she gets pregnant again, whether it's health reasons, emotional reasons, financial reasons, a lot of couples just think that contracepting in whatever way is the most loving option, and that NFP is just ineffective and unreliable and whatever. Could you debunk this, and maybe even speak to the beauty of the benefits of natural family planning as well as its effectiveness?
I'll start, and then please feel free to complement.
Sure.
But so on the effectiveness, let's talk a little bit about the effectiveness, because that is a true concern, right? And especially you mentioned some very serious reasons, very serious situations that parents can be, or couples can be very concerned about. First of all, is that there is no 100% method, right? Any method has a risk of failure. As far as natural family planning, there's the different methods, right? And that studies show that there are different rates of effectiveness. And the best method, according to these studies, have a 0% failure rate when it's the perfect use, and a 2% failure rate when it's used in the general public. So that's a very high rate, actually. That's it's better than the pill. Now, the two things I want to emphasize. The first thing is, for people who are very motivated, especially, is to learn from a teacher. So don't be on your own. Don't just take a nap, right? Is the importance of having someone who is going to guide the woman, understand what is happening really with her cycle, and help her read those charts, right? So having a great support is very important. Second thing is, the husband needs to be on board, right? So it's something you do together. And then a third thing is motivation. So obviously, especially in case of health risk, there's a high motivation. And I want to add that if one method doesn't seem to fit, right, use different. There are many options. So talk to people, find the method that will really put you at ease. There are technologies now that measure the levels of progesterone, the levels of estrogen, and there's tons of new technology that is coming on the market that is really going to help much more precisely know where the woman is on her cycle, and so that there is more freedom in terms of using this method. But by all means, it is possible. It is possible to be very effective with this method and avoid pregnancy.
Yeah, we actually have testimonies from women on our website at Natural Womanhood that say, here's why I still use a fertility awareness method, even though I have a really serious reason to avoid getting pregnant. And it's because, like Gerard said, when you learn an approved, modern method from a trained instructor, you can count on a really, really high rate of efficacy that, if not meets the level of the efficacy of the pill, actually surpasses it, depending on the method. The pill in regular use, so the typical woman who takes the pill can only expect it to be about 92, 93% effective, whereas, everybody thinks like it's so effective, it's going to keep me from getting pregnant, at all. And really in normal use circumstances, that's not the case. About 10 women a year on the pill, or whatever the numbers you're looking at. But anyway, the efficacy rates are not as high as we're always led to believe. And with fertility awareness methods, perfect use versus regular use, we're looking at 99% effectiveness, perfect use with something like the symptothermal method, and like 97, 98% effectiveness with typical use. And again, like Gerard said, your motivation to use the method and actually pay attention to the rules is going to be a huge factor in how effective it's going to be at the end of the day, just like with anything else. the conflation with the rhythm method is, I hope dead and gone by now, but I don't think it is, unfortunately. It's the rhythm method is not one of the modern methods that looks at real-time markers of fertility. It was retrospective and predictive. And knowing that an app, just because it might bill itself as a fertility app, is not the same as a fertility awareness method is also super important to point out. If something is asking you just to put in when you start bleeding every month, that's the rhythm method cloaked in code.
Yeah.
Not a fertility awareness method. It needs to ask you, about signs of your real-time fertility markers, like what your cervical mucus looks like that day, what your basal body temperature looks like that day. Some will even ask you about cervical positioning and the opening of the cervix. So if you're being asked by an app that, to track certain biomarkers, it's going to be in general better than, the one that's just asking you to mark when your period starts every month. But the very best thing that you can do is to learn a method from a trained instructor. And that's when you can count on high rates of efficacy, even when and especially when you have a really serious reason to avoid another pregnancy.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, but if you want to see the whole episode where this came from, just click the link here. And in the meantime, we want to invite you to help us share this message, and there's a couple things you can do real quick. Number one, if you like or comment or share this video, YouTube will actually show it to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We release videos every single day, and you'll be notified as soon as those come out. If you want to help us also to spread this message, you can support us at patreon.com/JasonEvert. That helps us to create these videos and show them to the whole world. God bless.